The NBA playoffs are raging, but for nearly half the league, the offseason has already begun. I'm going to take a look at a few teams that are in turmoil and have some major changes coming this summer. I'm Trevor Lane. This is the Basketball Bulletin. Make sure you subscribe right here to the channel. In fact, right now, about 70% of you watching this channel are not subscribed. Let's fix that. Hit that subscribe button. All right, but first, before we get into team turmoil, I thought this was funny. The Athletic has this poll out right now. They've asked a bunch of NBA players a number of questions. This question: would you be in favor of shortening the regular season if it meant your salary would be smaller? Maybe not surprisingly, 86% said no. They would not be in favor of shortening the regular season from 82 games. And I think there's a real argument to be made here for shortening the season. Number one, less opportunities for injury. Number two, making every regular season game matter more if there are less of them. Look at the NFL. Why does every regular season game matter? Why is every game an event? Because there's not that many of them. That is a benefit of shortening the NBA season, would be making every single game matter that much more. That said, it would also mean less revenue. And I thought that this was unfortunately revealing of a sign of the times in the NBA. This player said, I still got to play 60-something games and get paid less? Hell no. Yeah, pretty revealing, because the reality is that a lot of guys are only playing 60-something games anyway. For a lot of players, if you cut it down to, say, 65 games in the regular season, the number of games that they actually play in would not change. Yes, it's an 82-game season, but how many games are actually playing 82? Not that many. This player said, and I wish we had more players like this, no way, let's keep it at 82. If you're not ready, that's on you. You have to prepare your body. The league is 82 games plus the playoffs. That's what separates us. I love that. I love that. But this whole, well, I'm still going to play 60 games and get paid less. Hell no. Yeah. I mean, look, that's reality for a lot of these players. The number of games that they actually wind up playing would not change if you shorten the length of the NBA season. And so they're going to say, why would I make less money for doing the same amount of work? An unfortunate admission of the state of the NBA. All right, let's take a look at some teams that are in turmoil right now. I think first we have to start with the Dallas Mavericks. If any team is going to make a desperation run at Kevin Durant this summer, it's going to be Dallas, and I need to get to Phoenix next. But take a look at this. This is Stephen A. Smith explaining who is really to blame for the Luka Doncic trade, which has gone down oh so poorly in Dallas.
The last week, I've received several phone calls where I've been told Nico made that trade. He went to management and said, this is what I want to do. It wasn't management coming to him saying, we don't want to pay Luka $345 million. They wanted to make sure their investment would be worth it, but it was Nico who went to them and said, I want to trade Luka Doncic.
Whoops. Yeah, that lines up, right? That it was Nico Harrison. It was his plan. I want to trade Luka, and then ownership backed him up on that. Now, does that mean ownership is blameless here? No. And there's reports out there right now that Mavs ownership is actually kind of annoyed with Nico for not properly informing them about how bad the backlash to trading Luka is going to be. You look at how many Mavs fans have canceled season tickets. You look at the loss of jersey sales. You look at all the angry fans in the building. Well, not in the building. Now that the Mavs have been eliminated. Ownership not too happy with Nico Harrison. Are they going to fire Nico like Mavs fans want them to do? That seems a bit questionable at best. But to make it worse, take a look at this. This was Nico the other day. By God, can we please stop putting this man in front of a microphone?
When you were kicking the idea of this trade around, and you had various scenarios planned in your head, did the anger and outrage from the fan base, has that exceeded what you were kind of planning for?
Yeah, good question. I did know that Luka was important to the fan base. I didn't quite know it to what level, but really the way we looked at it is, if you're putting a team on the floor that's Kyrie, Clay, PJ, Anthony Davis, and Lively, we feel that's a championship caliber team, and we would have been winning at a high level, and that would have quieted some of the outrage. And so unfortunately we weren't able to do that.
Okay, so Nico saying, I didn't know to what level Luka was important to the fan base. He was their next Dirk. What are we talking about? And this is why there's the fire Nico chants that have been raining down in Dallas. This is why fans are so upset in Dallas. And because of this, look, Nico said, we thought we were going to be winning. He's not wrong, because that's the only cure. That's the only cure that the Dallas Mavericks have now to their current predicament, is to win. That's it. That's the only solution to everything that's going on, is to win and win the whole thing. That's the only way they're going to be able to point to this situation and say, okay, everybody, see, we were right. We made the right call. Now, is Nico right? Would the Mavs be good if they had everybody on the floor? Yeah, I think they'd be a pretty good team. But now I think the Dallas Mavericks have put themselves in a position where most likely they're going to have to make some big swings this summer, because they're not going to have Kyrie Irving until January. So, and that's maybe best case scenario, and that's coming off of an ACL tear with Kyrie Irving. So you're not going to have Kyrie. Hopefully you have Anthony Davis, Derek Lively, Daniel Gafford healthy, but you could see this Mavs team was missing that primary creator. The Mavs are going to have to go out there and get some things done this summer, and I do think when we talk about team turmoil, when we talk about teams that can do things that are particularly aggressive on the offensive side of the ball, the Dallas Mavericks, I think, are going to be one of them. They're going to be looking to make trades. They're going to be looking to do things. They do have that Lakers pick in 2029. I think the Dallas Mavericks are a team that has to, in order to turn public perception around, they've got to go add pieces, because otherwise, by the time Kyrie comes back, it may already be over in a stacked Western Conference. They can't wait. They're going to have to make moves right now. Speaking of a team that has to make moves, let's talk about the Phoenix Suns. And speaking of guys that should no longer be in front of a microphone, Matt Ishbia. I know, look, when you own the team, that buys you that kind of grace. But here's Matt Ishbia talking about the Phoenix Suns. Oh, my God. We will win championships. Championships with an S at the end. Oh, boy. And now, maybe a shift in the position on Kevin Durant? I'm going to get to that right after this. The NBA playoffs are right around the corner, and there's nothing like seeing a playoff game in person. That's why I'm thrilled to have SeatGeek as the sponsor of this video. With over 28 million downloads, SeatGeek is the #1 rated ticketing app. There are over 70,000 events listed on SeatGeek, including concerts, sports, festivals, and more. Right now, you can get tickets to the MLB season, and the NBA playoffs are right around the corner. I love going to live events using SeatGeek. For me, it's about the value. SeatGeek has your back. Each ticket is rated on a scale of 1 to 10, so you know you're getting a good deal. So you look for the green dots. Green means good, red means bad. Plus, every ticket is backed by their buyer guarantee. I love that. Takes all of the worry out of buying tickets. And you know, I came through for you guys. Use our code Bulletin10 for 10% off your next set of tickets at SeatGeek. That's 10% off any tickets with promo code Bulletin10. Make sure you click the link in the description to download the app and have the code automatically added to your account so you can use it later. Again, big shout out to SeatGeek. Super thrilled to have them on as a sponsor for the Basketball Bulletin. All right, so now we've got Matt Ishbia saying we want to win championships with an S at the end, multiple championships, saying he was embarrassed by the results from the team from a season that he's termed a failure. Well, why do we keep doubling down on this? I know you've got lots of money, and you've got that money by being very, very successful in business, and maybe that kind of habit of winning just makes you think it's going to keep going. But he came into the NBA as the new guy on the block, flipped the double middle fingers at everybody, at the entire league, at the entire CBA, and said, I don't care what new rules and restrictions you're putting in place. I'm going to throw my money around. I'm putting 3 stars together because I can, and we're going to win. And we're going to win the whole thing right away because that's what I do. And it blew up in his face. I mean, it was a miserable season. Miserable in Phoenix. This team was joyless. They finished and the 11th seed, not even in the play-in in the Western Conference. We're talking about a play-in team, not even a playoff team. Now there's rumblings that if they get the right coach in, now that they fired Mike Budenholzer, took some shots at him on the way out the door, now they're saying if we get the right coach in, maybe that'll convince Kevin Durant to just stick around and we'll hang on to him. Well, okay, then what are you changing? If you're not going to trade Kevin Durant, and I still think they will, I think most likely this is a smoke to try to push back on the narrative that they have to trade him. But the reality is, what else are they going to do? Especially when they're holding firm to this idea that they're not going to trade Devin Booker. Hey, maybe you should consider trading Devin. It sucks to say in Phoenix, but maybe that's what you should consider doing, is trading Devin Booker. Maybe that's the only real option, because you know what? You can get something for Kevin Durant, but are you going to get enough? Are you going to get enough of the pieces you need to build a winning team around Bradley Beal and Devin Booker with whatever you get for KD? And I said Bradley Beal because he's not going anywhere unless he suddenly has a change of heart. And even if he does, let's say Bradley Beal says, okay, I will go somewhere else. I'll go somewhere else, no problem. What other team is raising their hand right now saying, yes, sign me up to pay Bradley Beal $54 million with the no trade clause? Oh, and a player option next year at $57 million. I have the hard time imagining a team that's dumb enough to do that. So you're stuck with Bradley Beal. You've got Devin Booker. You've got Kevin Durant. It may be time to just move everybody and rebuild this thing. But I don't think Matt Ishbia, I don't think that when he's talking about championships, I don't think that his ego, his belief that he's going to be able to buy his way out of this is going to allow him to do that. It's going to allow him to do what may need to be done. And what we're going to wind up happening is Devin Booker is going to spin his wheels again, another season in Phoenix. They're not going to go anywhere. And then next summer, we're going to be having a difficult conversation about Devin Booker, because he's going to say, look, I'm 29, 30 is approaching fast. If I want to win, I need to go somewhere else. And then the Houston Rockets are going to be waiting there, smiling like the Cheshire Cat, with all of Phoenix's future picks ready to offer back to them for a book. That's if they don't give up that kind of stuff for Kevin Durant already this summer. In fact, watching that first game one of Houston and Golden State couldn't help when the Rockets couldn't throw the ball in the ocean, especially in the half court. But think, man, Kevin Durant would solve a lot of what ails the Houston Rockets. But nonetheless, look, championships, stop putting your foot in your mouth. Yes, change has to come to Phoenix. They've already started. James Jones, his contract expires. He may not be back there this year, but yikes. Don't start talking about championships when you were just the 11th seed. You didn't even make the play-in the NBA, and your players looked miserable on the floor. That's not the time to start talking about championships. It's time to talk about trying to put things back on track instead of trying to set the bar that high. Lastly, we've got the Atlanta Hawks. You know, the Hawks, Trae Young. How good is Trae Young, actually? Like, where are we at on Trae Young at this point? Is he one of the best guards in the NBA? Is he overrated? He's so polarizing. He puts up numbers all the time, but he gets torched on defense. He's a better passer than I think people give him credit for. One of the most fascinating players, I think, in the league, and one of the most difficult to rank in terms of his overall value. But Chris Haynes said Trae Young's in a good spot. He knew there was going to be speculation when the Hawks went to a younger core with the number one pick, but he's embraced that. And he wants to see this through in Atlanta and wants to be a part of them turning the corner. Yeah, I mean, I guess for Atlanta, they need to do something. Maybe not quite as much as the Suns, as the Mavs. I think Atlanta can look at things and they can say, well, Jalen Johnson getting hurt was a big problem for us. So instead, we're going to let Clint Capella walk. We'll say goodbye to him. Onyeka Okongwu, we already made the transition to him being our starter. And then we're going to be looking at guys like Dyson Daniels, Zach Reese-Hachey, and of course, Jalen Johnson. We're going to be building around those guys, plus Trae Young, Onyeka Okongwu in the middle. We'll have this athletic team. We'll be really exciting, high-flying. Off we go. That, I think, is going to be the plan for the Hawks. But I'll tell you what, when you look at what the Hawks have done, you look at how a lot of people don't realize it's been 5 years. Remember they made that improbable Eastern Conference Finals run? And they kind of committed to that team. They got sold on that team. It reminds me of what the Pacers did last year, making an Eastern Conference Finals run. But were they really a conference finals quality team? No. Yeah, they made that run. That was 5 years ago. 5 years ago. They haven't made the playoffs in the last 2 years. They lost in the first round the 2 years prior to that. They had a long stretch before that of not making the playoffs. This team has just never quite been able to get over the hump. And again, kind of like the Suns with Devin Booker, I do wonder if at some point, if it doesn't work out this next season, that's why they've got to be very careful with the pieces they add. If it doesn't work out this next season, do we hit a point where the Hawks say, you know what, Trae may want to be here, but this just isn't the right mix. I think they're going to give it a go, and they're going to hope that a return from Jalen Johnson is going to fix enough of the problems in Atlanta, is going to get them back in the mix in a weak Eastern Conference in terms of depth, that they can do that. But again, right now, the clock seems to be ticking on Trae Young. An incredible player, but he's also extension eligible. Extension eligible coming up this summer. So that's certainly going to be something to keep an eye on. What do the Hawks do there with Trae? Does that lead to a point of conflict? And then where do they go from there? So this is another team that I think has to proceed carefully, although I think the Suns, I think the Mavs are the far more desperate teams to look at this summer. And they're not the only ones. There's a number of teams that have to figure some things out, especially as soon as the Memphis Grizzlies get eliminated, which I think is going to happen in 4 games, to OKC after they got beat by 1 billion in game 1. The Grizzlies have some major questions. The Orlando Magic got to figure things out on the offensive end. They've got some moves to make. There are a number of teams this summer that are going to be highly incentivized to be aggressive on the trade and free agent market. So a lot for us to get into, which brings us all the way back to make sure you subscribe right here to the channel. We're going to keep you up to date on everything going on around the NBA and what should be a very busy and very dramatic summer around the league. Till next time, everybody. See ya and stay safe.